Hello and welcome to The Point. So, last week, my favourite games community of the past decade was blasted on Twitter, on blogs, and even in the mainstream press. Is GameSpot turning sour? And who is to blame? Let's have a chat, yeah?
The internet, a melting pot of ideas, opinions, and voices, and all of them are wrong except for me! It's been a tumultuous week for the GameSpot community of late. Personal attacks on reviewers have seen the site's community being lambasted in the mainstream press, and with the new console war brimming on the horizon, it's worrying to think how bad this could get. There's still lots of great discussion on the site, but many areas, like news coverage and reviews pages, have turned into shit-flinging arenas for overly aggressive users. It's inexcusable, but I don't like the idea of writing these people off completely. If we're to encourage discussion and empathy, we need to try and understand why people act this way, and when I think about it, it reminds me of my teenage years. When I was 15, I set up a message board for teenagers in my hometown. We talked about cool films, cool music, cool games, and what cool fields we were going to get drunk in on the weekend. But quite a lot of the discussion turned into shouting matches, meaningless stuff like Linkin Park or bollocks. These were arguments between people who knew each other, and discussions would get more and more aggressive to the point where personal attacks were made. Even friends are capable of being absolute jerks to each other on the internet. I was pretty bad about getting involved in these arguments myself, but I reckon my personal low was lower than most. When I found out my first ever girlfriend had cheated on me with 4 guys I knew at a party, I decided to post her phone number on the landing page of the website with some instructions as to what people should text her. Needless to say, she received quite a lot of horrible messages.
I feel really bad about it now, but at the time, I have to admit, I found it all pretty cathartic, funny even. Well, right up until the point where her mother turned up on my doorstep with screenshots. I don't think my parents had ever read the word before.
Some would argue she deserved it. I certainly did at the time, but adult me accepts that this was spiteful, reactionary, and thoughtless. But when I try and understand it, I don't think I did it because I'm an awful person. I think it comes down to being a teenager, to having a lack of confidence over who I was and how people felt about me. I think that when you're young, you're much less capable of backing down from an argument and less interested in empathizing with those on the other side of the fence. So I really find it hard to believe that our community is full of this many sociopaths. When I read a lot of these comments, I hear the frustrated musings of teenage boys.
It makes it more understandable, but it doesn't mean we have to accept it. Online communities have the ability to be so much more, and we all have a part to play.
Before we had the internet, I'd read magazines at home to satisfy my hunger for gaming conversations. Myself and my friends were going to school the next day armed with conversational factoids from the previous night's play. But not all people have that. I know for a fact many of the users on GameSpot either live in small towns or don't have a group of friends that play games. For these people, internet communities are a great way of having those conversations. And I know as I got older and became a true enthusiast, those conversations became more important to me. I started lurking on GameSpot about a decade ago and eventually registered in 2005 when I saw all the interesting stuff happening in the community. I followed some people, read their blogs, and eventually started trying out ones of my own. Every week I'd watch On The Spot, and that's where I got to know a bunch of familiar usernames in Chatroom Zero. We added each other on various online services and grouped up for multiplayer fun. Gears of War, Grand Theft Auto 4, Call of Duty, whatever was out really. Even crap games are fun with some mates. I've known these people for years. I know some of them really well. Joe Barron got me into F1 and stayed at my house a bunch. Timur Hussein bought me a hookah pipe and used to podcast at my house every week. I've had dinner with Sid Burn 19 in Dublin, drinks with Boz Animal in Boston. Jay Krieger even picked me up at the airport for PAX East. We went to the Giant Bomb panel together in a room full of hundreds of other internet friends. Bloody hell, I went to the Crystal Palace versus Swansea game with Crazy Craven this past Sunday. We go to a game or two every season.
What I'm trying to get at is these online communities have the ability to enrich our lives with meaningful conversation and wonderful people. These aren't just internet friends, these are real mates like any other, but that friendship started with something very simple, a username and a comment.
But over the past 18 months or so, more and more of these childish creeps have leaked into our GameSpot community. Perhaps it was the relaxing of GameSpot's terms of service last year. We asked moderators to be much more lenient. Perhaps it was the introduction of live fire commenting, which operates more like a chat room. People take less care in what they type. We used to have a cage for these people on GameSpot. We called it System Wars. But recently we've seen a lot of the silly arguments and childish behaviour bleed into side content. Are we to blame? Do we bait this behaviour with our headlines, with the stories we cover? Or is this indicative of a new generation of internet users? We're not the only ones struggling with it. YouTube has just announced some dramatic changes to how comments are moderated, and Popular Science has just removed comments completely. Personally, I think we all have a part to play in fixing this issue. Yesterday, Walter announced changes to GameSpot's community code of conduct, including a re-evaluation of our terms of use. Look, we don't want to censor anybody, but it's clear that scrubbing this layer of filth off the top of the comments is necessary if we're to truly create an atmosphere of friendly communication and passionate discourse. GameSpot and any online community has the capability of being a wonderful place of self-discovery, a place to meet like-minded people and forge relationships, or just a place to pass the time and read about your favorite hobby. What it shouldn't be is a place that makes you feel angry or ashamed to be a gamer.
We need to work together to eradicate this behavior, to finally get rid of the idea that all gamers are immature losers. So can we all just stop arguing for like 2 seconds? We owe it to ourselves, and quite frankly, we owe it to video games.